back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. Myself and Derek here yet again. And we finally are bringing you guys a second half of the games previews, the afternoon and latter.
Yeah.
So we're going to start it off with the Bills heading into Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Um, the over-under is 45, and the Bills are 3-point road favorites in this one, interesting enough. And full disclosure, DK Metcalf is doubtful, so that probably has a large part to do with why they are three
Yeah.
point favorites. But going into the Bills side of the ball, obviously we saw a little bit of life with Amari Cooper coming to the Bills last week. I think this is still going to be a pretty run heavy team. We talked about how last year, once the change was made at offensive coordinator, even though the team had Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, the pass rate went down. It has stayed down. I don't know that it will go up, but if, Amari Cooper can, with the targets he gets, be efficient. I mean, you're going to want
hmm
touchdowns more games than not out of him to see good weeks, but I think he'll be a at least solid wide receiver two for the rest of the year on this team.
Yeah.
That being said, I am starting him. Um, I'm really interested to see how the addition of Amari Cooper with a full weekend, he had that first games, got a full week of practice now, what it's going to really look like for the rest of this offense. I mean, I think this is a good week to start Dalton Kincaid if you have him. I mean, personally, I have him and David Njoku. I went Njoku last week. I'm sticking with Njoku. It's just a complete different, you know, what they offer to their offense or what they are to their offense are
Yeah.
completely different. And but I think Kincaid is a good start nonetheless. Um, Shakir and Keon Coleman are a bit more difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
I could definitely see I mean, one thing about it's tough because the Bills have not been good defending the run. So this game could go a few different ways. I mean, Ken Walker has been amazing this year. So, I mean, it's hard to just say that because DK Metcalf is probably going to be out of this game that Seattle has no chance of keeping it close. And we know Seattle likes to throw the ball a lot. Um, it's going to be a bit more difficult without DK, but I think they can still be formidable enough to make the Bills have to throw the ball and make the Bills have to move the ball downfield. And it is in Seattle as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, if you want to flex Shakira Coleman, we've talked about the fact that there are no buys this week, so it's a bit harder for me just due to that. But if with injuries and so on and so forth, you're, as we say, kind of backed into a corner, then I don't hate it.
Yeah.
And then Tyler Bass has not been a very reliable fantasy option.
Tyler ass, dude. He's
Yeah,
trash.
we could just he's lost the B from his name from here on out. And what do you think about the Bills defense this week?
Um, it's tough. I mean, they do wreak a little bit of havoc. Geno's thrown six interceptions on the season in 7 weeks. I don't think it's the worst idea, but there are potentially 10 to 12 better matchups I would prefer.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like I said earlier, the thing that worries me about this game is Ken Walker's ability to run the ball and
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo's disability when it comes to defending the run this year.
I mean, we thought the game script last week was going to go completely different, and the Titans kind of hung around more than I thought they were going to.
Well, I mean, the Titans did jump out to a 10-point lead, which was confusing, and then reality came back
Hit.
around.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, for the Seahawks side of the ball, he's currently number 6 in fantasy. He's been solid this entire season. I don't think this is the week to start him, especially without DK. But the tough part with DK too is realistically they have a week 10 bye. This is week 8. He has an MCL sprain. I think it's very possible there's a world where DK doesn't return till after the bye. Now they do.
Um, well, hold on. I'll let you say what you were gonna say
I
because it
was going
might
to
be what
say that they are going to play the Rams next week. So
that's
they
exactly
may
what I was gonna
need
say.
DK to return. So I
Especially after the Rams just won that last game.
yeah, yeah. So DK may have to come back week 9. They would love to hold him out till after the bye, but mainly talking on Geno's fantasy value, not only this game, but potentially next week as well if DK does miss. But in this one, obviously, Ken Walker has to get the start. And then, dude, we're getting the fantasy projections for Tyler Lockett and JSN this week. Lockett's projected 14 and JSN's projected 13. Some pretty hefty bumps, especially for Tyler Lockett. To see him projected 14 is fairly high. Do I think he'll live up to that value? Possibly. That's the tough part. It's another one where how do you think this game is going to go? Do we think Buffalo's going to jump ahead to where the Seahawks have to pass the ball a bit more? It could possibly happen. Ken Walker could also keep them in the game on the ground. But I think if you had Lockett or if you had JSN, you're in a 3 receiver league. Putting either of them at the flex isn't the worst option. I think it can be solid
I mean, I
return
like
for
Tyler
both of
Lockett
them.
in this one regardless.
Yeah.
I think Tyler Lockett is that 14-point projection for him should stand true. JSN does worry me a bit more. One thing I've I listen to a few different fantasy shows. I like hearing different opinions, and on a few different, I've heard Jake Bobo's name come up,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
not. I mean, I'm not even thinking necessarily as a fantasy asset with DK being out as much as, just he kind of fits the archetype, I guess, a little more.
Yeah.
Um, he's 6'4", 207, which is a bit closer to DK than, JSN. JSN is more of a slot type receiver. And I mean, I don't know. It's just a lot of those deep 50-50 balls. I, I don't want to predict anything, but we could see some of those go to Jake Bobo. Some of those touchdown passes, like
Yeah.
a touchdown pass might go to Jake Bobo just because he's probably going to fit into that role where DK is going to be missing.
Yeah, for sure. And JSN, like I said, he's actually been a bit more consistent these past 4 weeks. He's getting solid targets. It's one of those, if it's a 3 receiver league with a flex, you're probably going to have to put JSN in unless you have extreme wide receiver depth. But, just be cautious on that. I think Lockett does have a bit more of a safer floor in this one of the two. And then
100%.
and then I mean, Noah Fant. I'm sorry, Noah Fant. We're not doing it. You've had a solid 2 weeks, but with no buys, cracking the top 10 or top 12 fantasy tight ends. I think he's in consideration for 12, but not 10. He's right around that 12. And I mean, yeah, I'm not going to roll out Jason Myers or the Seahawks defense in this one.
No, probably preferable not to do that.
Yeah. And our next game, I don't think will be the greatest one. It's the Saints at the Chargers. The over-under is 41. The Chargers are favored by 7. It's another week without Derek Carr at quarterback for the Saints. So it will be Spencer Rattler again. Taysom Hill is set to return for whatever that is worth. That's an interesting tidbit. Kamara, you're obviously rolling. Chris Olave, I mean, it's tough to keep him out of the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen there has been albeit scattered
Mm-hmm.
among Cedric Tillman, Bub Means. There has been production while Rattler's been in at quarterback. It hasn't been the greatest, but you'd like to think. And I mean, what he said about Chris
Exactly.
Olave, he said,
Exactly.
so you'd imagine he's kind of going to force him the ball. I agree with you. I'm like, for example, if you have like a Demario Douglas or I'm trying to think of it, like a McMillan or just
Yeah.
even like a Wandale Robinson, one of the fringe guys, I guess,
Yeah.
that one of those matchup based guys, I think I'm still rolling with like Chris Olave.
Yeah, especially because you know how this matchup should go if the Chargers do go up in this one. It's gonna be, they're gonna have to pass the ball. So I don't, I don't shy away from the Chris Olave start, but realistically, outside of Kamara and Olave, I don't think there's another startable Saint this week.
No, that it's one of those you're not trying to force Bub Means or Cedric Tillman or even
Yeah,
Jawan Johnson, Taysom Hill into your lineup this week. They're going up against a good defense. I think this is one of those games where I'm grateful to have the NFL Plus Premium because I can just go back and watch this game in like 36 minutes instead of
three
grueling
hours.
through the entire 3 hours of this game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, Granted, there are other games. It's not an island game, so there are other games on at the time, but it's like I want to get through this quick from beginning to end.
yeah,
Going into the Chargers side of the ball, I think that JK should be better than he was last week.
yeah,
No, I mean the Saints honestly, when looking at how they have been um against the run, they are currently, let's see. This isn't just one of those things that's unusual to see, kind of like the Ravens being so bad in passing defense. The Saints are giving up 146.7 yards per game on the ground.
mm-hmm,
It's unusual to see for the Saints, but they are currently a huge run funnel. And I mean, I'll take a look at the pass yards per game that they're giving up as well, because I think just all around they're not doing too great. Yeah, they're giving up 248 through the air. They're giving up all. Ooh, yeah, total yardage per game, they are the worst in the NFL, giving up 394.9 yards per game.
yeah,
And this is through 7 weeks. So I believe the sample size is large enough. J.K. Dobbins is a great start this week.
yeah,
Chargers are favored by 7. We've seen the issues with Spencer Rattler. Um, he's very, very unfortunately turnover prone,
yeah,
as we saw in that game against Denver. And the Chargers have a stout defense just as well.
yeah,
I think it's going to be a lot of the Chargers controlling the ball. We're going to see a whole lot of J.K. Dobbins in this one, probably over 20 rushing attempts. Ah, outside of him, I mean, Lad McConkey's questionable with the hip.
yeah,
He, I, I guess if he plays, he's a decent flex, but I just don't feel like the Chargers are really going to have the need. I mean, in last week, we saw Will Disley just completely take over for the pass catchers in Los Angeles. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really confident in J.K. Dobbins, and I think that's about it
yeah,
as far as the Chargers, honestly. And then if you want to start Cameron Dicker in the Chargers defense, I think those are
yeah,
two good starts.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just not a good game like to. And then Quentin Johnston's doubtful still after his couple big performances has kind of been hurt or just
yeah.
disappointing. Into our next game. I don't know how to feel about it. I mean, it's one of those ones where I feel like it's the Chiefs are going into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. Chiefs are 9.5 point favorites. Over under is 41 points.
Yeah.
This is one of those games, kind of like not exactly the same, like because the record. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has a very good record against the Raiders, puts up good stats against but they always play them very close. They're always like a play or two away. Despite a game or two here or there where they
Yeah.
might have gotten blown out, but for the most part, the Raiders always play them well. It'll be interesting to see how they do with AP and no Devontae. Realistically, I think Kareem Hunt is just going to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that Patrick Mahomes is a decent option this week. I mean, I'm starting him over Trevor Lawrence in our Dynasty Superflex League. Um, I do like the matchup, and like I said, he has historically performed well against the Raiders. If there's going to be a week where you can expect at maybe 20 points out of him, it might be this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know. And you're starting Travis Kelsey, and then I just don't feel like Xavier Worthy is at the point of you could flex him, especially, if you want some upside with the possibility of a touchdown, because, like a lot of he gets involved a lot when it's like the go routes or the stuff close to the line of scrimmage, either one which could break for a touchdown. So if you want that upside, I don't mind playing him, but I don't think he's like a trustworthy week to week play.
Yeah.
And then, as we know, Juju's out. DeAndre Hopkins, I genuinely don't know how much he's going to play. I've seen different things, like Andy Reid's like, yeah, well, why not? Why wouldn't he play? And then they're gonna have like a few packages for him. And if I more, like with the Puka approach from Thursday, it was kind of like, yeah, it depends more on who you have. Like for example, in the same dynasty league I had, it was like an option between him, Jawan Jennings, who was also questionable, now ruled out. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
glad I made the decision that I did. Or Rashad Bateman against the Browns,
Yeah.
who, I mean, regardless of how they've been this year, the Browns always play the Ravens very tough. It's a divisional matchup. And it just came down to like, look, I know what Puka's done when he's been on the field. And if he's going to be on the field and they're going to try to win this game, he'll probably be involved as compared to what I'll get out of, you know, a questionable Jawan Jennings.
Yeah.
So that was just my process there. But when it comes to D Hop, this is a completely new team. We haven't seen what it looks like. He might end. I mean, it might end up being like Amari Cooper, and he goes in and gets a touchdown. I don't hate it if you want to flex him for that reason, but it's one of those I'm a lot more comfortable just sitting back and seeing what happens, seeing how this plays out this week,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't traded him high, like just on that, on all the buzz, like, oh, Mahomes new number one, like this, that, and the third, it's gonna be so great. If you've held on to him, I think you might want to just wait this week, and that could be a mistake. He could go out and score 2 touchdowns, but
Yeah.
that's just my spin on it.
No, and I think it's fair. It's a tough one
Oh, and then you're
too.
playing Butker and then
You
Chiefs
play him.
defense.
Yeah, and that's the thing was, the Raiders have had some close run-ins with the Chiefs, but this one realistically probably will not be. The Raiders side of the ball, your only safe start is Brock Bowers, the tight end one. His last 3 weeks without Devontae have been 12 targets, 10 and 14. He's been an absolute monster for this offense. I will note Alexander Madison, dude, I'm going to touch on it again. The past 3 weeks, he's gone double digits. He's the lead back there. He's going to catch a couple out the backfield. He's going to give you, around 15 carries a game. If he can fall into the end zone, it makes it a better week. If you're hurt at the running back position or you need someone, you have a good lineup and you're like, I need 10 points from the running back, he can probably get you that. Will he have a great week? No, probably not. But he should be a decent start. I think his floor is okay with his
And
involvement
I
in the
doubted
offense.
last week,
And
and he proved me wrong.
yeah, like he's been decent for the Raiders. So it's
He has been. I mean, and it wasn't like he put up poor numbers last week either. And
yeah,
he did well. I will,
yeah.
and I mean, I'm rostering him in a couple leagues. I just,
The
it's one of
hesitation
those where
should
it's like
always be
I'm
there.
happy to see. I was happy to see what I did last week. Very happy to see. Like it was
Yeah.
comforting. Unlike like Chase Brown and Zach Moss. It's like we got a little bit more clarity with the snaps. Both of them kind of performed like crap. So
Yeah. Yeah.
still trying to
And
figure out what.
the only other one, Jacoby Myers, is expected to play. He somehow had a full practice on Friday. He is still technically deemed questionable, but it is looking like he will play. I don't think we should roll out Jacoby Myers, but I am excited if you have him rostered, which I do in a couple leagues. It's exciting to finally see him play now without Devontae and how it will look, what his involvement looks like, especially against a good defense in the
I
Chiefs.
feel like it's important for Brock Bowers that he does play against the Chiefs because if you remember in week 1, um, granted, we didn't really know what was going on with Mark, but the Chiefs kind of took away Mark Andrews, who at the time was the perceived number 1 receiving threat for the Ravens. And just without Jacoby, even the threat of Jacoby on the field, I just worry. Granted, I'm starting Brock Bowers regardless. The talent is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm rolling him out, not even thinking about it. But it would be a lot better for him having another credible threat out on the field with
For
Jacoby
sure.
Myers rather than
Trey Tucker and
Trey
DJ
Tucker
Turner.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, here's just hoping that Jacoby does suit up and play for all of our Brock Bowers owners out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean that's really it. Like it should be a pretty ugly one here. But I mean there are still a couple Raiders that mainly just Brock Bowers, but a couple that, we're hoping to see some decent fantasy performances from. Our next game actually should be very exciting. The Bears at the Commanders. The over/under is 44.5. The Bears are favored by 2.5. The Bears side of the ball, Caleb Williams has been getting very hot lately. He's throwing the ball well. Really well these past 2 weeks. And this is another favorable matchup. I think Caleb can be a solid start this week. I think he's someone that it's going to be hard to not start him, even in a 10-man. He's been QB6 and QB1 these past 2 weeks. Another favorable matchup. The team looks healthy. I think Caleb should be a go. DeAndre Swift should be a go. DJ Moore an absolute go. And then you get down to like Roma Dunze, I don't think he should. To be
And Cole
real,
Kmet
yeah.
belongs in those absolute goes.
Yes. Yes. And
Until he proves me otherwise, like I have to throw him in.
yeah, I mean Cole Kmet's
That rapport's
still
been great.
he's still the tight end 3 despite them having a bye week this past week. So absolutely for him. Roma Dunze, like no, he's got to sit it out. He plays a lot. The targets haven't been there even these past 2 weeks. So I don't know. And then Keenan Allen, he had that solid week, but I still feel the same about him. Like I think he could have a good week this week, but again, with no buys, it's hard to justify putting him in. But it is a favorable matchup. So if you have a couple injuries at the receiver position, I think Keenan will have a better game than Rome in this one. But I don't know how good either of those games will look.
Yeah, it is hard to say, to be honest. I mean,
Between those two, it's just tough to say who's going to have the game.
it is. Unfortunately, it's like trying to pick between Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks on any given week.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you could go ahead and take a gamble and be right on one of them. You could be right on neither, or in a rare occasion, you could be right on both.
Yeah.
And that's just what's tough. There's just so many options in these offenses, and neither one of them are like the guy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to rely on.
Yeah.
Oh, this next part, I've been dreading talking about this game because this is the hardest like decision of the week for many purposes. I mean, so we have Jaden Daniels questionable with the rib injury, going to be a game time decision. It's the the difficult. I mean, obviously, if he doesn't play, I think I'm not very. We've talked about the fact that I'm not very willing to play Terry McLaurin um, against Jalen
Jalen Johnson, the
Johnson with
guy.
Marcus. Jalen Johnson is currently the number one ranked cornerback in the NFL. And look, Marcus Mariota played a good half of football.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about what team it was against. So I just don't feel like against a really hot Bears defense that Terry is. I mean, he's been great. Like they did well in that half, like against the Panthers. They did very good. He got like 98 yards, but I just don't like. For example, I pivoted to Romeo Dobbs in that game against the Jaguars. A decision. I mean, I think a lot of people like have the ability to make. He was,
Yeah.
a waiver pickup near the beginning of the year, and people might have dropped him. A guy that you might have. I even no, not even gonna go there. Actually, I'm sorry. Um, but like Jalen Tolbert, I feel like might be a better play this week. In all honesty,
He might though.
I
He
do.
might.
It just scary Terry. It's a scary play this week.
Yeah.
But and to top like at the top of it all though, Jaden Daniels, even if he is able to go, I mean, most people you're in a lot of leagues, you are starting him.
Yeah.
A lot of the other options you might have aren't going to be they don't have the upside that Jaden Daniels has. The thing that worries me is the rib injury caps his upside, rushing the ball, and just that one bad hit could, take him back out of this game. But you're starting Brian Robinson. I mean, we didn't see much work out of Austin Eckler last week, disappointingly, but I still
Yeah.
have faith in him, and especially in a game where I do see them,
Yeah.
especially if Mariota is playing, I do see them getting down. Um, Obviously, Brian Robinson's a go. He's been great. And then Zach Ertz. I have no problem starting Zach Ertz this week.
Yeah. He's gone double
And
digits the
Austin
past two
Seibert.
weeks.
Yes, he has. And the Bears aren't that great against tight ends either. So, I mean,
It's true.
I think he could be in for another double digit. It's so much hinges on who plays quarterback, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then the kicker, Siebert, not playing the Commanders defense, although they did look great against the Panthers last week. And that's all I got for that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you
And
got a
now I
lot
get
for
to talk
this.
about the Panthers.
Yeah, this next team.
Um, Probably just don't do it. Is my Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got in this next game we have the 1-6 Panthers taking on the Denver Broncos in Denver. Over under is 41, and the Denver Broncos are favored by 11 points.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a long while since the Broncos have been favored by this much. Um, and I mean, with just cause. Bryce Young is going to be starting for the Panthers in this game. Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen will both be missing, leaving the top two options to be Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker.
Yeah, it's gonna be so bad. Shout out Denver defense, man. They're gonna go
I'd
crazy
like to
again.
think I don't. Chuba might have an awful game, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have the ability, there's a league we're in where I have Najee and Chuba, and I'm starting Najee. I mean, I don't think that's
yeah.
some galaxy brain, but I just do not. Denver's defense is too good, and Bryce Young is not.
Good.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add.
Yeah, and then the Denver side of the ball, and this is a good talking point because like when we talk about Jaden Daniels and like just the risk of him being re-injured in this one, the fact it's still coming down to a game time decision. You have Bo Nix, who also gives you rushing upside, who is playing the Panthers in a very favorable matchup, who's coming in healthy. That's like one of the good pivots. I like the Bo Nix start this week. I know Schiff's been very high on him, and rightfully so, especially as of recent these past 3 weeks. Against a good Chargers defense, he still put up almost 22 fantasy points. This is a terrible Panther defense. He should have a good week this week. And so should Javonte Williams, who had an absolute monster week against the Saints. We talked about how the Saints have been a run funnel. The Panthers are leading that charge. The Panthers are just a terrible rush defense. We just have loved the starts against them and really haven't been burned by it. I think Javonte is a great start. Cortland Sutton, you're going to have to sit the bench this week, dude. You just zeroed us. Didn't even get a single target against the Saints. It's one of those where the pass catchers, like I have slight interest in Troy Franklin. He's getting more involved in this offense, but I don't like starting any of the pass catchers. I think it's Bo Nix, it's Javonte Williams, Will Lutz. I don't mind, and also the Broncos defense genuinely has a chance to be the highest scorer on on this team. I wouldn't be surprised. Just for seeing what they did to New
If they
Orleans.
score a touchdown, yeah, but I think Javonte honestly
Yeah,
might.
yeah. It's just, yeah, the Broncos defense is like potentially the number one
But
defense to
man,
start
I
this
could
week.
use a rushing touchdown from Bo Nix this week. Yeah, I'm very biased on my Bo Nix takes. By the way, he was my number one pick in not number one overall. I did not do that, but he was my number one pick in our dynasty league.
Yeah.
So I've got no choice but to roll with him. He is kind of my future.
Yeah, no, I mean he's been showing out. And what this takes us to our Sunday night game.
Yes, it does.
The Cowboys at the 49ers. If you are tuning in from California like we are, this is a very big game for a lot of people you will know. A lot of trash talk on the line here. And the Cowboys, man, like they just looked absolutely terrible against Detroit, but they are playing a very short-handed 49er team this week. So there is some
I feel
real
like there's a
glimmers.
lot on the line for both of these teams.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's it's a
I mean, especially, I mean, the Niners already have losses to the Rams and the Cardinals. If
Mhm.
they fall to 3-5, I don't know. It's just not, obviously not an ideal situation, but it could be kind of backbreaking.
Yeah, yeah. To get out the two very obvious starts like CeeDee Lamb, and honestly, I still think Jake Ferguson is an obvious start in this one. He's just too good of a tight end to keep on your bench this week. See, Dak Prescott, he's had 2 bad weeks, He's had two really bad weeks, one mediocre week, and then 3 solid weeks. I think Dak, if you drafted him, I think he's a solid start this week. I do think he's going to show up in this one, and he's going to have to. That's the thing. Like I do think the Cowboys have not ran the ball very efficiently on the season, and they haven't ran it that often. Like Rico Dowdle should be an okay play in this one, but I don't think it's going to be because of him on the ground. We did see Dalvin Cook will be on the active roster. I'm curious to see his involvement. I don't have insane hope for him, but I am curious to see how he fits into this running back room and the role he
I
will
mean, bro,
play.
their third running back working in was a fullback. Is Hunter Lipke?
Yeah.
It's not.
And Zeke just
It's
has
like
looked.
malpractice what they're doing there.
Yeah, and Zeke looks like he just has not. Like he just doesn't have any gas left. So I do think at the very worst, Dalvin should be able to take the RB2 if he has any juice left in his legs. And I guess that leaves Jalen Tolbert, who, yeah, I mean, I don't completely mind him. He's projected 8.7. Would I be surprised if he went over that? No. I think he can have a decent week. But like Shift mentioned, if I was more surprised between. I think I'd be more surprised if the Cowboys won this game, to be honest. Even though the 49ers are shorthanded, the Cowboys defense is extremely injured, so it's just tough. I don't know. I don't know, actually. It's a toss up, but CD and Jake Ferguson, Dak, if you throw them in, it's a bit risky. I don't mind the start. And then, Rico Dowdle and Jalen Tolbert are kind of like the fringe decisions where how much faith you have in this Cowboys offense, especially after last week.
All right, here's a question for you, kind of a funny one, but so Dak has been historically good after his bye for fantasy purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so would you start Dak post bye Dak or post COD Kyler?
And the Cardinals play
Miami.
Dak. Dak. I was going to ask you a crazy question. Would you start in this? I'm being serious. Maserati Marv or Tyler Lockett this week? It's crazy that you know what I mean? It's a genuine. Because I'm thinking Lockett.
Lockett, I think at this point has shown. I mean, not at this point. We know Lockett has a safe floor, but this season at least, Lockett has a safer floor than Marv does. Um, this is going to be a game against Miami that they're getting Tua back, so I liked. They just haven't been on the same page.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know how many more weeks you can afford to watch it play out on your starting roster. I
Yeah.
mean, they might just have to get it together on your bench. And then there have been good weeks, and he hasn't been a total bust. It's just been bad for where you took him. It's so tough.
Yeah. But these are the tough decisions.
I feel like you might have to go lock it.
Yeah. I'm thinking so. We'll
Watch
see.
Mark get 2 touchdowns.
I know, of course, of course. But I mean, obviously Brandon Aubrey for the Cowboys, and that is it.
Yeah. And then on to the Niners side of the ball, where sadly Brandon Ayuk will not be playing the rest of this season, but George Kittle is in, and it's looking like, I mean, what the? Debo's questionable with a wrist now after he gets out of the hospital. Okay. I mean, I think Debo's going to play, so you're playing Debo. You're playing George Kittle. We talked about Jawan Jennings being out. Ricky Pearsall. What are your thoughts?
I actually think he's going to be a solid start in this one. Just with the lack of
You playing him or you wait and see? You full
depending
go
on
right away?
depending on my roster, but
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm not like against putting him in if need be. I do think he can crack 10 to 12 fantasy points because also Debo's playing. I think Debo will play as well, but he's getting over pneumonia.
Mm.
Like how much Debo's going to play, how capable he's going to be out there, I'm not sure. I really am not sure.
Expect a big George Kittle game.
I agree, and I expect a lot of running as well. Like I just think they're going to have
Expect
to.
or hope. No, I'm just playing. There probably will be. No, like all joking aside, there probably will be a lot of running. But yeah, I'm realistically George Kittle is probably 20
Mm-hmm.
plus point game.
It should be. It should be 10 targets at the very least.
Oh yeah, it should be a big one for him. And granted, I mean, we'll see how much Debo is able to go, but yeah, that is it for our Sunday night game. Staying away from the Niners defense, I think, in this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Oh, fun, fun, fun. Going into our Monday night football game, we have the New York Giants taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Over under is an ugly 36.5, and the Steelers are favored by 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. I mean, Wandell is you
Why do you need to start Wandale this week? Unless we talked
injury.
about your team is riddled with injuries, but at
Yeah.
that point, you need to start Wandale Robinson.
Yeah, that's true.
That you're not like on the what he's going to give you and you know what he's not going to give you. You know the floor he has, but his ceiling is I can't say non-existent. He did get a touchdown one week, but the likelihood of it is just not very high.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, realistically, and for the whole Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary thing, we're just kind of
Seeing how it plays out.
waiting to see it play out. Hold on to your guy and hope for the best. Kind of like if you're in the Chase Brown, Zach Moss situation.
Yeah. And the Steelers side of the ball, I do like the Najee start this week. He's gone over 100 this past 2 weeks. He's gotten at least 13 carries in every single game. He's getting normally a couple targets out the backfield. I think they're going to be winning in this game from their defense alone. At least they should be, especially at home. But yeah, I like the Najee start. George Pickens is a guy we have to start. We saw him and Russ have an instant connection. I mean, he had his best game of the season immediately. His only touchdown of the season as well. And Pat Fryermuth, because I know he's still the tight end 10 and people have been holding on to him, but these past 3 weeks, seeing him only get 3 targets a game, I would like to see him get a bit more. Do I think he should be rostered? Yeah, but not started in this one. And I mean, the Steelers' defense I do like. I think they're going to get after Daniel Jones, wreak some havoc, and Chris Boswell has been incredible as well. But that's,
Oh yeah, you're starting Chris Boswell.
I mean, that's
Every week.
really it. I do think the Steelers are gonna. I think they're gonna win this one.
Yeah. Um, and I think like, rostering Jalen Warren, just kind of seeing what happens. I mean, he's finally getting healthy. Um, as a matter of fact, he did see 51% of the snaps last week,
Mm-hmm.
and he did run the ball 12 times. So we are seeing it head more towards that split again, while Najee has been a lot more prolific than we have seen in recent history. He's been good this year.
Yeah.
But it's to be noted that Jalen Warren is getting back up there, is starting to get healthier and get his reps back in. So I think, if anything, obviously he's a good insurance back, but I think he's a good emergency flex, like break glass in case of, type of guy.
Yeah.
If you need him, especially in the latter half of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That is it.
we made it.
Another week.
Oh man. Well, guys, hopefully we can make it through this week without too many injuries.
Yeah.
Last week was a bit rough. Wish the best to all of you. Oh, and for all of those interested, the game between Derek and I was ridiculous.
Yeah. A Maserati Marv drop away from
Ye-
potentially, don't know
What was
for
it?
sure.
Well, to be fair,
It would have put
I
me in the
think it
lead.
was a 30-yard catch,
It would have put me in the lead.
which would have put you in the lead. Which at that point, nah, I mean, even if it plays out the same, um, I'm pretty sure you would have won if he caught that ball.
Yeah. An
And
open
it
pass.
open pass right through his hands, through the breadbasket. I think hit him like right in the sternum, and then
Yep.
it was one of the craziest fantasy football games I have ever been a part of. Unfortunately, it was in week 7,
I
and that would have been a hell of a championship game.
Yeah. It was a good one.
Best week 7 game ever.
Yeah.
Brought to you by FTF. But as we say every time, though, guys, thank you once again for watching and for being a part of this, because without you guys, without the audience, we wouldn't really have anything to be streaming to. So thank you once again. Thank you for watching. And as we say every single time, come back next time, take more reps with the first team.
Yes, sir.